Okay, so I'm going to call this Public Site and Building Commission meeting, regular meeting to order at 7:06. You'll join me in the pledge. Our flag's over there for those who. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the
and
United States of America,
to the republic for which it stands,
and
one
one
nation,
nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. All right, so we will continue on with our agenda, although we may have to jump around a little depending on who comes in when. So we can do public input. If anybody is here from the public and wants to say anything, please let me know. Okay. And then correspondence. Kathy, you haven't gotten anything last minute? I didn't get anything either, other than everything that's connected to directly to our projects. So then approval of meeting minutes. I will make a motion that we approve the meeting minutes from our regular meeting of April 13, 2022.
Second.
A second from everybody. So that you had amended the other minutes. So the amendment was in these minutes, saying the amendment from the last time. There was a date that I think, or something specific that Geraldine had. But I'm not sure if the date ended up, the date was kind of weird. You can look at it. I think that's nothing big, but that was all that I noticed. Is there anything else that anybody noticed that needs to be corrected, updated, whatever, with the meeting minutes? Nope. Good. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed or have to abstain? I think everybody was present last time, so which should be good. Yeah. Okay, good. Yeah, he said he needed a few minutes and then he was gonna jump on. So even with Perna coming on, I think we can do the police station first, just because it'll take him a little bit to get organized and we don't have a whole lot.
Right.
So we're going to, let me just say first, and I'll say it again at the end if more people join us. As you can see, we're doing hybrid. We're in meeting room A right now. There's wall-to-wall monitors, so no matter where I look, I can see. Because you don't have it on gallery view, you have it on speaker view, I think. So I see whoever is making the most noise. But that also gives us the opportunity, the way they have it set up now is it gives us the opportunity to see the screens more easily. So if there's members of the public or anybody else wanting to speak, we can see that. If you can put it on gallery view, that might be better. That way we're not looking at one person, we can see everybody else. Thank you.
You're welcome.
We'll try this. So going forward, we're going to have to do hybrid at least for a while. The executive orders that created the capability of Zoom as a meeting platform for towns expires April 30th. We thought it expired last week, so we had to scramble to get this room and do the hybrid meeting. And this cannot be our forever home right now because there are so many different other boards and commissions that use this room because of the capability to do hybrid. And it's way distracting, this very sensory overload to have so many monitors going on, but it's the way they have it set up. So we have our meeting tonight, and going forward, we're going to have to just find spaces. The only two rooms that can be used to do hybrid right now are here and meeting room D, which is planning and zoning, and they use that so much that it's hard to get yourself in there. Meeting room B, which is upstairs, which is our original home, is being outfitted with some of the technology, not as many monitors, but monitors, cameras, and microphones, so that we can have hybrid meetings, although that's going to take a little bit. I know we can use the Board of Ed conference room, but we can't do hybrid there. So we're going to have to keep, just sort of keep an eye whenever you get the agenda, look and see where the room is so that you know where to go. But we still have, obviously, we cannot all do Zoom. We have to have hybrid. So let's go into the police station until we get some more people on here. So Geraldine, if you can, I know the bids went out, the bid opening happened. I missed it because I put the wrong date on my calendar. And if you can let us know about that and give us an update, that would be helpful.
Yes, it lasted all of about 5 minutes, so you didn't really miss anything. So the bid opening, the bids were due at 10 o'clock on this past Monday, the 25th. We had the bid opening. They received 3 proposals. At the bid opening, all it was recorded was the name of the company and the dollar amount. It was clear from the 3 proposal prices that were read off that 2 out of the 3 could not possibly have complied with the entire set of requirements that we laid out in the RFP. I only have a copy of one at this point. What we're doing next is I'm meeting with Lieutenant Libertini tomorrow morning to review. We'll have a formal review of the proposals, meeting minutes, create a recommendation jointly with the police department to, I presume, back to the Board of Selectmen to accept one of the proposals. Yeah, and so that's where we'll be, and then we'll be able to work with the comptroller's office to enter into a purchase order with the one proposal that we are presuming complies with all the requirements, and we'll move forward after tomorrow. At the same time, Board of Selectmen did approve the contract with Jakunski Humes. I think at this point they have an executed copy of that contract. As soon as we have confirmation on the vendor that will be supplying the firing range, we'll be kicking off the design services with the architects. And as previously reported, should we have a successful award to Action Target, they need 5 months to design, fabricate, and schedule delivery of the equipment. So within that 5 months, we'll be working with the architects to complete the building portion of the project. So that's the progress that we've made so far.
Okay, and if people aren't familiar, the whole bid opening process, if you haven't gone to it, the only thing the procurement committee does is open the bids, read the name of the person submitting the bid and the amount, that's it. The actual whole proposal goes to whichever commission or department or board is supposed to then take them, review them, do whatever, you know, as we did with like the school projects, looking through them, deciding who we're gonna interview, etc. So that's part of the process that Geraldine's gonna be doing with Lieutenant Libertini tomorrow. And then
Correct.
Going then with that amount, once you get that settled out of who it's gonna be, going to the Board of Selectmen with that amount to be approved. So there is an executed copy of the Jakunski Humes proposal. Matt signed it. I scanned it. I sent one to Brian, and I have to file one with the town clerk, but I uploaded it to the shared drive. So hopefully it's there, signed. The unsigned one is there, but I think I put the signed one up, or at least I did it the other day. I just gotta go back and make sure it's there. And so they should, Jakunski Humes should be able to get going on their part of the design, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes, correct.
And then will we be able to then, once they finish their design, get a contractor or construction manager involved to start putting things in place? Once obviously there's some back and forth with them between Jakunski Humes and
Yes.
whichever contractor is chosen to be the supplier installer of the range equipment.
So the plan is as soon as we have a good scope and probably, you know, some construction documentation started by Jakunski Humes, we'll establish a more real cost estimate for the architectural / construction work outside of the vendor's contract that needs to happen. Then we'll have a better handle on the budget, and we'll know where we're falling relative to that $1 million threshold. And as soon as we have a general idea of what the construction is going to cost, we'll know whether that has to be bid or whether that can be a negotiated contract. I suspect it's going to have to be bid. It's going to be over $50,000. But we'll have a better plan once we get a little bit farther into the Jakunski Humes work.
Right, because I think the Board of Selectmen is going to want to know somehow we're gonna have to come up with an estimate for that construction amount. Once we have better plans, you know, some more plans in place from Jakunski Humes, then I think we can come up with an estimate for that part. So we're gonna need to have a whole, they talked about this at their last meeting. They have to have a whole sort of project budget amount to be able to work with.
Yep.
Okay. Anything else?
That's it. We're in process.
I don't have anything either other than the invoice. So if anybody has any questions for Geraldine or any other input on this, I think this is sort of easy, simple part.
Can we ask what the low bid was, or dollar amount?
Well, so I can tell you what the bids were, but without, I haven't had a chance to, the proposals were submitted in hard copy, and I don't have a copy of them. They've been delivered to the police department. I'm going to see them tomorrow when I meet with Mike Libertini. I can tell you that the low bid was $96,000, $96,855. That was, I know that one is not a complete bid. That was just from an acoustical contractor who would provide acoustical treatment to baffles and walls. So we know that was not a complete response to the RFP. The second bid was a little less than $358,000. I don't know what was included in that bid, but I suspect it did not include the dedicated HVAC equipment. And then the third bid was $808,120, and that is the proposal that I suspect completely complies with the RFP requirements, which is slightly under the number we had previously. So,
Thank you.
So you've got to do a lot of comparing tomorrow as to what their RFP says and what their proposal says to what the RFP asked for, to make sure that everything complies, because if we're missing pieces, then that just doesn't, we can't do that.
correct. I mean, the exercise tomorrow is to review what's included in the proposals against what we asked for, and to eliminate bids that don't fully comply with the RFP requirements. So,
Okay. Thanks.
Action targets say they're start to finish. How long are they talking?
they still need approximately 3 weeks to complete drawings, and then about 5 months to schedule fabrication and delivery and installation. So the installation is within that 5 months, I think. So they need a couple of weeks of install. So we're probably looking at about 6 months total time period before the work is substantially complete.
Thanks.
Okay.
And John, as soon just follow up, John, as soon as we get them under contract, we will be able to further review the HVAC requirements, both for the action target, both for the dedicated HVAC system, and then also review the requirements for the supplemental heating or conditioning that we're going to do based on Jakunski Humes' work. So that's
Thanks.
still on the radar.
I just want to add that equipment right now is running anywhere from 32 to 48 weeks. So
Yep.
I know that the equipment that they put in the package, it doesn't look to me that what you sent me, we could open this up to other vendors, but without that package unit, you can't finish the range. So we ought to be thinking in that terms of maybe opening up to a couple of different manufacturers, as long as they can meet the criteria of the tonnage, and base our decision on price and lead time. Because equipment is really starting to get really delayed.
Yep.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, anything else other than the invoice that we have? So I have the invoice with the invoice number. So I don't know if you have it and you can put it up there.
I can, Cassie, I need
I know,
screen
sorry. Different.
sharing.
one
That's okay.
for that.
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay, so that's Geraldine's electronic copy. I have the hard copy that was mailed to the town. I got picked them up yesterday. So I will make a motion that we approve invoice number 900242216 from STV for the firing range in the amount of $2,978.
Second.
Dave Olson seconds. It's other couple pages are detailed. It's mostly Carolyn doing what she has to do with a little input from her office. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Done. So that's it right now for police department, police station, firing training range, unless Bob Durkin has anything that he needs to add in.
No, I'm good.
Okay. All right, Bob, thanks for being here. And the rest of you have to stick around, but Bob, I think you're good for now. I think our next meeting, we're gonna have a lot more information to look at as far as a vendor for the training range equipment. Hopefully Chupanski Humes will be a little further along with plans, so we can start looking at putting together hopefully some costs on construction. All right, so now John Pern is here.
Okay,
Thanks, Bob. And we've got 5 for a quorum, so we can do school stuff now. So we're gonna jump back to our old business of Rockwell and Johnson schools and close out progress and completion update. I don't know, Ken or Jim, probably no change, but we'll talk about the whole site work thing next, but I don't know if there's anything else you have for us. Ken, you're on.
Okay, the field at Johnson was aerated, fertilized, and reseeded. They seeded the area at Rockwell around the transformer where the water main was excavated. And they fixed one of the gates. They previously replaced all of the hinges, but they have to put stops on. So they've got some parts on order. There's a latch on order and some of the stops. So we looked at one today with Joe, and it's probably going to correct the problem that's been occurring there. And that's it for an update.
Thanks. So to expand, we did have a little walkabout today. Joe Coletta, Dave from SLR, Ken, Roy, I tagged in partway through. Pete and the other guy's name from Sunburst. And we did see that earth movers had been at the field at Johnson. They did the aeration, etc. However, there's some discussion as to, they said they were going to aerate 3 inches, yet if you stick your finger in the hole, it's really not 3 inches. So I'm not sure where we go with that.
They
And then
They did address that after the meeting, and what it was is their plan had 3 inches, and he went out there and measured some of the plugs, and they were 2 inches. And what he has said is that when you water, the soil starts going back in and filling up the hole. And they've been watering last Friday and Saturday, and it rained last night. So he was saying that, you know, really the inspection for the aeration probably should have been on Thursday when they were doing it.
So I think we're waiting for a report back though from Claude McGrew per se on that.
So Joe, did you and Dave look at that? And,
Or SLR.
SLR, yeah, we did look at it. Dave didn't mention anything about that being a possibility, but I could check with him, I guess, to see if that's something that actually happens. But
I think there's still some discussion, Joe, also on, on the spec as far as the topsoil. That was kind of towards the end of where I was then, and that the topsoil didn't seem to make the spec of what was called for the plants.
right, so what's gonna have to happen is once everything is set and the topsoil will have to be retested once it's the amendment process has been completed.
so what,
then-
how much topsoil was called for?
In the spec,
Yes.
I believe it was 6 inches.
It was also the composition of the topsoil also, Nancy.
Correct.
So, and then weren't there some little bores done up there or cores done to test it, Ken?
Yes,
And what did you find?
it just had, the pH was off a little bit, the sand was a little high. And the organics were a little bit off, but the part of how earth movers fertilize that is going to make some of the corrections with the material that they used for fertilizing.
Okay, so what's the next step here?
Just let it grow in, and then we'll retest it like you've asked for.
Okay, and is Earth Movers going to continue to water to make sure we get some stuff growing there?
Yes,
Okay,
Ken, have they developed a watering schedule?
it's basically as per required. He's talking with his landscaper who's telling him that you can't put too much on. So
Right.
yeah, talking to him about it, and I told him, what, water it every day if it needs to. But yes, we've talked about watering, and he went up there today to water it. And he discovered that they were playing softball on it. So I made up signs. I'm gonna put the signs out there in the morning. After tomorrow, hopefully, we can keep anybody that wants to go over the yellow tape from.
who was playing
Who was playing softball? That was my question, Nance.
They've got, somebody was having pitching practice because they had some of the nets up. I don't know the people's names. I could talk to,
But it wasn't the school.
it wasn't?
No, I'm asking you. I don't think it was the school.
No,
I'm
they
at-
were older. They were older. They
Okay.
weren't school age.
So you don't have like caution tape or something?
Yes.
They have caution tape, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
Dr. Carver,
Yeah.
they have photos of the people on the field. So Earth Movers sent over a whole email. We'll forward that to you guys. Maybe you can find out who it is.
yeah.
So
and,
it's-
but now there's signs up saying don't walk.
it will be in the
There's caution
morning.
tape up that they walked over, and
Yeah.
we'll put some signs up tomorrow as well.
Okay, and we'll make sure that we monitor it extra closely too.
Okay, because I think that, you've got Park and Rec who might be using the space, and then you've got the adult softball. And then you have the actual, it's not Park and Rec, it's like a softball association. And that is separate from Park and Rec, even though they kind of go through Park and Rec to use Park and Rec spaces. So I can also email Eileen and see if she
Yeah.
has any control over contacting people to let them know to stay off of that for,
She
Yeah,
does,
there-
she does,
Yeah.
Nancy. I think that's a great idea if you want to
Yeah.
reach out to her, and I can too, if you want me
Yeah.
to.
And I kind of think that there are some sections of some of the softball groups that just sort of do their own, let's go practice over here because nobody's there. And, you know, she may not have any control over it, but she may know people that she can contact or that I could contact to say, you gotta stay off. But I think if you keep putting the signs up, put more signs up even, you know, they're not gonna be able to use that field, period, if we can't get the grass to grow properly, so.
Yeah, and really the use to be restricted until next spring.
Yep,
Not even in the fall, Joe?
SLR's recommendation is to restrict use throughout the 2022 growing season, which would be through the fall.
All right, who's
We
gonna
might
tell,
be better
who's
off
gonna
with
tell
the-
Eileen that?
So, hey, Joe, is SLR gonna get us a report as far as for what was done today?
No, so when I was, their response about what work was done is that it really needs to, they need to wait and see what grows and then they could go out there and do a report. Because they won't be able to tell until something actually grows.
right,
And then they're gonna need soil samples as well. And we also need to know, Ken, you said that they seeded, we would like to know what seed mix they used. I didn't realize they had seeded already.
Okay,
because they seeded the soccer field, and fertilized, but they also seeded that whole area around the dumpster that we saw over by where they had to dig up for trying to find that elusive water main connection thing. So they seeded and hayed that too. They graded it, put some soil in, put seed down and put hay there too. So
Right,
hopefully
so-
they'll be,
Yeah, if you could confirm, Ken, if they used what was submitted already, which I think was from Priority. Or if they used, so we don't know what earth movers used.
So Ken, just to
I'll let
clarify,
Pepper-
that nothing is supposed to be taking place on this field. No recess, no game playing, no mowing,
nothing.
right? No
Correct.
mowing of anything, no. So the signs need to say this, because, you know, we don't want to have a problem.
We may-
Wanted to
We should maybe get temporary fencing across
Yeah.
across the front.
something.
construction
We
fence or
have to do
something,
something
because
so that
it's-
it's
people are gonna
right
go on
this time, yeah.
I mean, on the weekends, anybody can stop and park like they do in the back and run all over the place, so. How do we keep people off?
You gotta
We're
put
gonna
a
have to put
temporary
up
construction fence across with
construction
signs.
fence. It's gonna be more than caution tape.
Can we put some construction fence along the front and heading down a couple of feet down the sides with signs that say, keep off, trying to grow the grass? Hello?
Going around both schools, I'm not sure when, but that's a lot of construction fence.
No, not all the way around. I'm talking about at the edge of at the end of the soccer field. Across the end of the soccer field and maybe a couple feet down the side, just to make it real obvious.
Yes, we can do that, yes.
Yeah, it's not that much area because the fence goes
It'll
around the
just be
rest.
adjacent to the basketball court area. there.
Right.
Yes.
Along the road.
And maybe put a
Yeah.
sign, on the new gate that's in right field, off of right field from the existing softball field.
Okay,
I mean, we just have to give our best effort to make sure
Yes,
that a mistake isn't made and it isn't mowed by mistake and it isn't played on and
no mowing, no walking.
no,
Don't even look at it.
watch the grass grow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that kind of segues us into, as far as putting fencing and stuff like that up. The next section of the whole site work punch list, et cetera. Because our walk around, as I said, included looking at things with, Ken was there too, and looking at things that need to be remediated, both at Johnson and Rockwell. And, you know, Joe had his list and Dave had his list, and it's obvious that there are certain areas that we're gonna have to put up more, either caution tape or something to keep people from running around in areas once that is remediated and seeded. Obviously not on the slopes, but there was an area behind Johnson that I don't think is used regularly for any kind of recess or whatever, but who's to stop if kids are back there or them from running around or people from running around? So who wants to talk about our little walk around? You want to talk about it? Ken, you want to talk about it? Joe, you want to talk about it?
Yeah, I could talk about it. We walked both sites, reviewed all the items or most of the items on the punch list. I think the areas that are most needing to be addressed are the areas adjacent to sidewalks that have settled, and new topsoil and seeding needs to occur. That's pretty much throughout both sites. The lawn areas that we have identified, the lawn areas that need to be aerated, fertilized, top dressed, and seeded. Looked at the areas with grade issues. So for example, behind the basketball court at Johnson, there's some low points that don't pitch to the yard drain. Also in front of the new classroom addition has some localized grading issues that need to be taken care of. And then we looked at the Rockwell dumpster gate. I guess we could talk about that at the end, and what needs to be done there. And review the slopes at Rockwell, at the playground, the basketball court, and that front slope that need to be fine graded and seeded, and erosion protection installed to make sure that it takes.
So what's the next step with this? We did the little walk around. Sunburst sees all of what needs to be done. What's next?
We're ready to go. I thought the only question from this afternoon was whether we waited till the fall planting.
Okay.
Right,
Right.
so Sunburst brought up concerns with seeding at this time of year, that the high potential of just ending up with crabgrass in the areas that they seed, and they're recommending, it sounded like, to do this work in the fall, or starting in
Mid-August.
mid-August,
Yes.
depending on.
So they did talk about getting it done before school starts. So mid-August, getting it seeded, and then having the opportunity to continue to water and monitor, et cetera, as we move into school opening, and then as school opens, et cetera. Obviously, the areas that are existing would be mowed, as they're not going to be just left. We would want to mow them, keep them looking decent, et cetera, or as decent as possible. I don't think any of the areas will, except for that one little area of slope behind Rockwell, might erode any further, unless we have some, 7 days of rain or something like that. So I would be, so now is like right now, last week, the week before, are the optimal times to seed now. And then fall. Obviously, if we were in the middle of the project and we had just dug a big hole and we had to seed it, that would get done. But since we have the opportunity to make it the more opportune time, I think it could be good to wait.
Can I
Who's
ask-
that? Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I was texting Eileen while you were introducing it, Nancy, so I apologize if you already said this. But I don't see the issues around Rockwell and the slopes, that area, having any big impact on whether we wait till fall or now. Did you also mention areas around Johnson in the school, or that wouldn't be touched?
No, there are some areas around Johnson where we've got some expanses where there's big blank spots, so that just might need to get, a little infill of soil and seeding. There are areas at Johnson also where the curb is of a sidewalk, and then it drops down 4 inches because the dirt settled there. That's got to get filled in and seeded.
So the only thing I worry about is it, what parts of it? Is it like in the back where those sidewalks are, or is it in the front, or all over?
The sidewalk issues throughout both sites.
Okay. I mean, obviously, ideally now going, well, I guess it doesn't matter because I just worry about kids stepping on it, which is what they complained the issue was last time. I guess it wouldn't matter if you did it now,
The kids would step on it.
right?
But if it started mid-August and there was good watering done and keeping an eye on it, et cetera, it should be, growing by the time kids are walking on sidewalks, and hopefully they'll stay off the grass long
Yeah.
enough to get it
And-
growing good and heartily so that it can be walked on at some point and not have a problem.
And crabgrass, I don't know anything about this. Crabgrass doesn't grow in the fall. Is that the thing?
I believe it's less likely to grow in the fall.
Okay.
Not being
I
a
mean-
crabgrass specialist, but that's what it sounded like. If there's a high potential of it establishing itself if you seed now versus in August, September.
Okay. I don't think I have an issue with it. It doesn't affect the closeout, right, Geraldine?
No,
No,
No.
it's rework, Dr. Carter. So,
it's
Okay.
right.
yeah.
So you're not going to
Yeah.
file for it. Okay.
Right.
But how does it affect the Rizzo closeout process if we've got an issue with
Right.
priority, and there might be some back charging of them, et cetera? How does that
It
work?
would just remain open until the work is done.
Yeah.
The dollars haven't been spent, but they've been held and allocated. What he does, that's up to him.
Right. Okay,
Okay.
but that doesn't slow down the process of some of the paperwork that you need to do at the state level. You can't
Yeah, I mean, I
completely-
guess the risk is that if by some chance the state really moves quickly and wants to audit the project prior to closing out the Rizzo contract, which is now being held open until the grass issue is resolved, right? The risk is that the state would want to move ahead more quickly and we would not have a closed out contract. When we file the final application for the grant with the state, we're essentially telling them, this is the amount of money that's going to be spent on the project, but we won't have a signed off certified invoice for that total until after this grass issue is resolved in the fall. So there's a little risk in timing.
But the only thing that would happen though, theoretically, is that we'd have to say to the state, we have this outstanding thing and, right?
Right. Yeah, I mean, practically they do an audit, they'd identify that this piece of paperwork is missing and they would hold open their closeout until we could complete the file. So it's sort of an ongoing paperwork audit process. And my guess is that they're not going to move that quickly on it anyways.
Yeah, I mean,
So-
it could, just so the committee knows, it could potentially, I think, Terry, delay the final payment to the town too, correct?
Oh, it will delay the final payment. Final payments won't come until the audit is complete. So
Which
it may cause a little more time. Geraldine's right. We want to trigger the audit, but we have to get on the schedule for the audit.
Right.
And that's gonna take a while for them to send us a letter and say, hey, Bethel, we're coming out to do the audit. And so you might be done by then, or if they come out, they're not gonna close their audit, until they get that final paperwork.
But the town needs
Right.
to know that there is a potential, it could delay if they did trigger the audit and moved on it quickly, which is unlikely.
Right.
But they need to understand that there could be a delay in that final payment.
Sure, yes. We should
Theoretically,
definitely put contractors, but the contract is going to be open until the grass areas are accepted in the fall anyway. So the town can't close it out, and you're right, the state can't make the final payment. It should all time out, favorably, but
okay.
Because it is already the end of April, Christine, so by the time Geraldine and I finish everything and send it up there, it's gonna be during May. And then you're only talking a matter of months. You're not talking a year out
Right.
even.
And it's the same company that did the other work for us. That the landscaping, the one that did the hill and,
Yes,
oh, good.
yes,
I thought they did a nice job.
yes. Yep,
So I would recommend that you find a way to be creative in identifying with little stakes or something, the areas that need to be protected for a while when school reopens and we don't have it
Yeah.
all marched on. you know?
right. So I think that might be something that, and that was actually talked about today with Sunburst, so Pete and the other fellow did talk about how are we gonna get areas to get knocked stomped on. So
Well-
they talked about putting tape up and then they were like, if we put up caution tape, that might blow away. Obviously, putting construction fence everywhere is not a good option. But if you put some caution tape with some very specific signs, I think that could work.
Yeah, and like little stakes with a caution tape, I think along the edges that you need to protect, I think would be fine. And I'll just have to communicate to the schools. We just have to be extra careful.
Yes. Yeah.
Um,
Like I said, if they start, they had said when they were talking about fall, I'm thinking like September, but then they said before school opens would be ideal. Especially if they have to do any work in any areas where they have to bring in any machinery to maybe do a little light grading, which is more at Rockwell than Johnson. But they have more flexibility to, if they've got to bring some soil in and they're running it around on a little, I don't know, gator or something, that gives them more flexibility to do it when there's not buses scooping around.
Christine, what's the first day of school for students?
well, I think that you need to communicate to Sunburst that starting the week of August 22nd, they may as well just assume that it's full throttle. That students don't arrive till the 29th. But that week of the 22nd, that's when staff is all back and it really ramps up.
Okay. So you got that, Ken and Jim?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
This is still being supervised through Rizzo.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I didn't
Right?
realize
Yeah.
that.
Yes.
And just so you know, Ken and Jim, they're starting the turf project next week. I don't even know if that matters. But
Is that at the high school or is that?
it's the middle school fields.
Okay, so the one that, like, we were looking at that one field by the old playground off the side of Rockwell, that one field that we were saying, not there, okay.
It's I mean, I could show you an architectural rendering. if somebody-
Yeah.
But
The whole
it's,
other side of the middle school.
Okay, the opposite, so far side of the middle school building.
right, it's
Kind
gonna
of between the high school, middle school.
Right, so just, I think for Ken and Jim to know that there might be equipment and things coming through, but it probably shouldn't get in there, right?
it shouldn't really affect you guys, but I
No.
just want to mention it because that's starting on Monday.
Yeah. So,
Going through September or the mid-September.
mid-September, okay,
Yeah.
okay,
And by the way, Nancy, Eileen's all set. She's gonna email all the leagues and she knows that she can't mow, and so she's gonna take care of it.
well, something else that Sunburst brought up, and this is gonna have to be between Eileen and whoever Bob has to do any mowing, was obviously not mowing where there's gonna be planting going on for quite a while until it's turned over, but also in the areas that you're gonna mow, especially mid-summer, because Sunburst was up there a bunch of times during the summer doing some different things. Some of it just looking at stuff with us, but they were saying how they were watching, the lawn get mowed so short that it was middle of summer, it didn't really need. So I'm wondering if, I don't know, if somebody needs to have a conversation with, this can be another time, but with whoever's doing the mowing about maybe mowing, adjusting the mower deck or adjusting the time schedule of mowing if it's not needed, et cetera. so that we keep the grass going really well.
I think it's,
I can take care of that, Dr. Carver.
yeah, I think
We
it's
can
Park
talk
and
to
Rec.
our vendor.
Well, it's also Park and Rec, I think.
It's
Yeah.
Park and Rec and it's our
Yeah.
private vendor.
All right, so another thing that kind of came up, not when Roy was there, but while I was walking around is with all of this stuff that we kind of saw, a few things that need to be looked at, et cetera. Is it a good idea to possibly have like a OAC meeting with, so that we don't have to be looking at all of it at this meeting? Looking at, do we do this? Do we not do this? Do we mow this area? Do we dig up that area? Do we put grass over here? You know, any of that? Or are you guys all good on what needs to be done? And I'm throwing it out there.
Before we start, because there's going to be some areas that may be questionable, like the front of the slope of Rockwell. He's going to provide a proposal to fix all of that. So we just want to be clear before we start. It wouldn't hurt.
That might, it wouldn't hurt. And then if there
No,
are
it
any
wouldn't hurt.
other, so instead of having to do it at one of these meetings, item by item or whatever, and you guys haven't had one, I know you've been more communicating directly with each other, but it might be a good all be in the same room or on the same Zoom, which however you do it. And hash all that out. And then if there are any other items that, like, we were looking at that dumpster enclosure at Rockwell. What do we do about that? That's, you know, talk amongst yourselves. And anything else that might be outstanding that either Dr. Carver knows of or Bob knows of, et cetera. Might that be a good thing?
So, yeah, so Nancy, you're suggesting we all get together in a room and finalize resolving punch list items, which items are going to be let go, which items still need attention, and develop a schedule by which we resolve these items that are not on the current scope for Sunburst to work on in the fall.
That might, I thought that, well, and then maybe even looking further ahead into the Sunburst part in the fall, instead of doing it item by item or whatever at one of these meetings, get it taken care of, and then we might get a report back, and maybe one of us might attend if we can to give our input, et cetera.
I think that's a great idea.
Okay.
So we would,
Yep.
we would likely do it sometime this summer, right, Geraldine?
I
Or
think we
earlier.
would do it soon, right, because some of
Okay.
these items, like, still talking about gates needing hinges replaced, and then the
Okay.
dumpster, are we gonna talk about the dumpster enclosure? I mean, I think we should probably do it within the next couple of weeks, there will then be a plan on the landscape resolution, and then we can hit all of these other items and establish accountability for resolving them and a timeline for resolving them.
That's
Let's-
fine.
Should we do
I'll,
it the Monday or Tuesday before the building committee meeting?
Well, so here, let's bring that up. The next building committee meeting is scheduled for May 11th. There's two things going on there. A, we don't have a room to have a meeting in. And B, unless I sit here with the Zoom on, and that can be sort of hybrid, but it wouldn't be coming through these things, it would be coming through my computer. But Geraldine's not available, right?
I'm not here either.
that's
No.
that.
Kathy's not here.
I'm not here.
John's
I'm
not here.
I'm not here.
Christine's not here. So do we have, so let's look at this. I'm just disclosure, I'm looking at my calendar in my phone. Here's I'm already gonna try to FOI my text messages. So that's the 11th, that puts us out. So our next meeting would be the 25th. The room's available, I believe.
Yep.
You booked
I
it.
already booked it.
Kathy will be here, everybody else will be here, hopefully. So does that, A, give us enough time to put all that stuff together? I'm assuming it does. And B, are there going to be pressing things that we need to look at before that?
So to be clear, what you're, we have the go ahead to do this work, correct? So there's no action that needs to be taken on the, for the school things. That has to be taken by the committee. It's a matter of us kind of getting together and deciding what we're gonna do, report back to the building committee at the meeting,
Right.
and then just get the plans going, correct?
Correct.
Correct.
Okay.
Right.
Well, I think that's fine. It's fine for me.
So are you
So I would suggest
asking if we wait till the 25th, or if you try to insert something on the 18th, or what were you thinking, Nancy?
Well, I was thinking of waiting until the 25th unless
Okay.
there's something that we think is gonna come up before then, and I doubt that it will. That would put us in a position of needing to have a meeting.
Not from my perspective.
Yeah, probably not for school
And-
stuff. We may, I don't know, we've got some other things with the renovations here we gotta deal with. I think the firing range gives you some more time working on getting all the different work together that needs to happen before we can then start coming up with more concrete numbers to go to the Board of Selectmen. And I don't think we need to
Yeah,
bring it to the Board of Selectmen, you do. So,
We will.
Yeah.
But we'll not have any progress by the 11th. The architects will be working on their part. We will
Yep.
probably just have issued a purchase order to the vendor for the equipment, so they'll be working on their part. There will not be any real progress to present on the 11th. And we could hold this kind of punch list resolution meeting during either the 12th or the 13th, or the week of, early in the week of the 16th, and be prepared to have a report back to the building committee for the 25th.
So if that's the case, Joe and Geraldine, so you're talking, if we meet right before the 25th, you're talking about either the
Well, I'm
20,
talking about,
go ahead.
well, when are you going to be, I was thinking sometime the week of the 16th, but are you available that week?
Yes, yeah, I could do it on, I have time on the 16th.
you guys can.
I
figure that
have a lot of time on the
Yeah.
17th. I go to a retreat at Harvard University, and I think that starts the 18th. But
I'm on
we
the
could talk-
16th, 17th also, those are good dates.
yeah, the 17th, I'm like after 9 o'clock in the morning, I'm wide open.
And that gives us a chance to, based on that meeting, to put together that plan that we would then, circulate to everybody and then make available to the building committee for the 25th. So I'll reach out to everybody and coordinate a time either on the 6th, we'll target the 17th. We'll look at 16th or 17th, but we'll have that meeting on, potentially the 17th.
I know this is unrelated to the building committee, but can we also loop in Nick and just talk about the technology debacle? If we're all going to be in a room together and Joe's going to be there, I really have a lot of complaints about
Okay.
ESC. I always say it wrong.
All right, no, we'll do a technology portion. Maybe we'll, piggyback, back to back in a couple of different meetings so people don't have to,
Yeah.
people don't have to sit around.
And I know they had a
Um,
walkthrough today, and I hope they resolved a lot of the issues, but I
Yeah.
just very disappointed.
All right. I'll arrange schedule for both.
Thank you.
Okay, good. So we're not having a meeting on the 11th. Unless something comes up about the municipal center locker rooms, which we can meet separately and do a special meeting, we'll figure that out.
And just to be clear, you can have a meeting in our conference room. It's just not as well set up. So if everybody had a laptop, so that you could see all the participants, and then Kathy was recording off her laptop or one of them, you can do it. It's just not as set up as nicely as this setup is.
Right.
So just know anytime if you want to meet in our conference room, it's no issue.
Yeah, we know that. It's just a little more difficult.
Yeah, it is.
We are going to have probably 2 people up there on the screen who will continue to be on the Zoom and not come in person, although I will. So we're going to finish up school stuff. Yes, we know we can use it. I'm gonna
Okay.
say a couple things about the hybrid meetings. I can't
And Nancy,
force-
is that forever? I thought that there was cutoff.
Yes, there is. So there's some kind of time frame with hybrid also, but I don't know what that is right this minute. I'll have to find that out.
Okay.
But for now, we can do this, which obviously makes it easy for some people not to have to come here as of time distance, but also for people who still have concerns about COVID. We take those in consideration. Going forward, as we do hybrid, at least for the next couple of meetings, I would greatly appreciate, and the reason why you see my name up there is I have my laptop set up so that if I need the screen share, I can. Because I don't know how to do it through there, even though there's a way of doing it. We can figure that out another time. I can do it from my laptop. I would greatly appreciate, and I have appreciated, everyone who's part of the team, any team, whether it's police station, park and rec, or the municipal center locker rooms, or the schools. I really appreciate if you had your camera on. If you don't have a camera, figure it out. Get a camera, put it on while you're working with us. I know sometimes you have to step away. Not all of us can be wherever Joe Colada is at Johnson or Rockwell. But we all know that we don't have our own offices at home, or we can't have an office that we get to go to. We've got to turn the camera off sometimes while the dog's barking in the background or whatever, because we're in our little home spaces with. But having your camera on is professional, I think, and I would greatly appreciate, I do appreciate those of you who keep your cameras on, and those that don't, I appreciate if you put your camera on in the future. Thank you. Invoices, unless there's anything else.
There is not.
Okay.
You did kind of skip through budget review, but honestly, there is
Oh,
no
okay.
change on, I mean, I can pull it up, but there's literally no change on the budget or the contingency log from last meeting, and they're both posted. They were all circulated and they were both posted. They're both posted on shared
Yeah.
drive.
Yep, I appreciate that. Thank you. Yes, I did jump over it, but thank you for bringing it up. Before I do invoices, is there anything anybody else has about school projects that need to be brought up, dealt with, etc.? You think of anything that might need to get added to that meeting, the OAC meetings that's going to happen, the meeting that's going to happen in a couple weeks, mid-May? You can let me know. I can pass it on to Geraldine, or if you let Geraldine know, that would be great. Hopefully, if there is anything specific at the schools, like I said, Dr. Carver, Terry can let, or even Bob can let Geraldine know. Okay, invoices, which are basically just STV. And
Yeah,
you want to put them, all right, you can put them up.
whatever. I was gonna say only because Perkins had a little technology glitch, so theirs are late, but we'll
Okay.
be seeing theirs now. Well, Joe, now not until the May 25th meeting, but
Yes.
that's what it is.
Okay, so I'll make a motion that we approve the STV invoice number 900-24212 for Johnson School in the amount of $1,820.
Okay.
I got a whole bunch of seconds. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Done. Thank you. And then the other one. I make a motion that we approve the STV invoice number 900-24213 for Rockwell School in the amount of $1,456.
Okay.
Second from Dave Olson. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Done. So, just a quick recap. No meeting on May 11th. There'll be a meeting somewhere around May 17th, if not on May 17th. Owner, architect, contractor, whoever else can make it meeting. Geraldine will work on setting that up and where, unless you do it all by Zoom. And we'll go from there.
Okay.
Anybody have anything else? Okay, yeah, we had a little fun up at the schools today when it sort of did a little bit of hail, sleet sort of thing at, for 5 seconds. It was raining on and off, but then it started doing this real sleety thing. So you get your own weather up there at the schools. Ken and I were ready. We had our warm hats on and gloves and everything. All right, so thanks. John Perna, Dave Olson, you gotta stick around. Thanks, everyone else.
I thought she was thanking us, didn't you, John?
I thought so too.
You.
I'm saying thank
Is
you,
that-
but you still gotta stick
Thank
I
you.
around.
thought the
No, no.
report was being dismissed.
Yeah, thank you.
John and Dave are sticking around. The rest of you can stick around if you want
Not for
to.
that much longer. I'm
There are
ready to
only two of
adjourn.
us?
You may set a new record for sure. Thanks,
Night.
Joe.
Bye.
Good night, everyone.
All right.
Night. We might set a new record for short meetings. All right, so last bit is the municipal center renovations. And an update on that. So at our last meeting, I did talk about how I brought forward the amount that we had decided on to the Board of Selectmen. There was a lot of discussion back and forth. Board of Selectmen still had questions about mostly the process of using this Gordian company and going through the whole state contract thing. But then again, as I had said, Rich was pushing for raising the ceiling. So I did contact Gordian to ask about, they had given us a budget figure of the 250,000 to getting something together that was more specific. And so we had a meeting today. We had a meeting this morning. Had two meetings this morning, one here, one at the schools. Roy was here. Kevin, our rep from Gordian, and Jay from BMP Construction, along with Rich, came along to ask more questions. Roy, myself, Eileen, and I think everybody's questions got answered, pretty much.
It was a very good meeting.
It was a good meeting because the process is different from what we're used
It's
to.
hard to understand.
It's hard to understand, yet it's been in place for a long time. It's, again, I'm going to restate that it's kind of like using the state contract list. But this Gordian group, they're very much kind of like an owner's rep. They do have owner's rep services. They'll do construction management. They do a lot of different things. But they have a contract with the state, the Capital Regional Council of Governments. The CROG, what they call it. It's the CROG, whatever CROG. Where they periodically, and it's usually once a year, once every year and a half or so, put out to bid, so to speak, for construction manager or general contractor, and then all the line items that they can think of. They have a book that's like, they literally brought a book with them the one time that's like this thick, but it's also in the computer. So, you know, all of you that work in construction, if you're looking at any project where you're doing a takeoff or and you've got your basic category, your main categories, actually, I can put the thing up. I'm going to screen share. See if I can get to, not that. That's what I want, is that, but where is it? I'm not going to do it right this minute. Anyways, all the different categories that would be used in construction, all the main categories, and each category has subcategories. They have costs to do pretty much everything. And they do projects from small, like, let's say that we hired them to go through the municipal center and replace all the toilets. They'd come up with a figure, how much the toilet's going to cost, how much to get rid of the old ones, how much to install the new ones. Done. We don't have to go through an RFP. We don't have to have an architect design things. So Richie had the most questions, but at the same time, what we looked at, just standing there in the lobby, was everything that needed to be done, because there is a set of plans that we worked with Peter from Architects Guild to put together. We were writing an RFP to put out there, and then we kind of, COVID hit, and we kind of got distracted with some other things like our bigger projects like the schools. So they have put together that quote, which is what I'm trying to call up here. And that was the 407,000, 407 plus thousand. Trying to get to it. Put it on the including, there it is. That. Back here. So that amount, we took and added a contingency to and brought that to the Board of Selectmen. Then as we were looking at the bumping the ceiling up, what Gordian said was that
Budget to 250.
the 250 budget. All right, is that showing on my screen? No, it's not. Why didn't it come up on the screen? I'm gonna stop sharing because all you see is my. I'm gonna try to go back and do that again. That there. That there. Sorry. Want to talk while I'm trying to do
I
this?
thought though, we had a lot of questions as far as, how it was accomplished as far as, the mechanism. And I think that one of the things Richie had a lot of concerns about, I think all of us do, is, where is our three different bids or, bidding it out. With this mechanism, it's already been approved. So
Make sure they can hear you too.
the bidded, the amounts themselves have been, state approved on the list. So working with this project, I actually, when I looked at it, when we had a clean set of plans, that made sense to go out for a set of, get your 3 bids per se. We have the clean plans, but yet we're saying, you know what, let's make this a little bit of a hybrid plan because we don't know if we want to spend all the money to do the ceiling. And two is maybe we should be redoing the steps over here, maybe a light and what have you. Whereas this program actually allows us much more flexibility to cherry pick what we want in and out of the project without having to go back out for another RFP and another, look at it. And you can even do this while the project is moving along.
Yeah.
So I think there's some, I think in how this project is being kind of coming together per se. Actually, I thought this actually seems to be working rather well because it allows us, I think that even I think after today's meeting with Richie, I think we're all questioning the viability of raising the ceiling up all the way up, taking out all the structural members in there. And it's only about 15-foot wide area by 30 feet, 30 feet long. And I mean, I was the one that was probably in most support of Peter's plan in total, but the logistics of it and the 250,000 of what it's going to accomplish, it doesn't seem to make as much sense as I think, it should.
Right.
So, and I actually think Richie was coming around a little bit with that. And the fellow from BMP Construction, who's actually does the work on this, said, maybe we should look at it. The beams are about every 5 feet across, or 5 feet. The beams that are creating the low ceilings are really about every 5-foot increments.
They're steel beams.
Yeah, they're heavy I-beams.
Yep.
So.
And then on top of each
Right,
one
there's
is another beam going
another-
perpendicular,
Right, which holds the floor.
which holds the floor, but
Above.
creates, because there's a
And-
stepped floor above,
And
creates
that's
the
where you have to
different
start.
steps.
It's a lot of layers to take out the amount of beams
Yeah.
and the structural.
Right,
And, then we're looking at going back and getting a structural person again,
yes,
because our structural guy was offline.
Yeah.
Because when he passed away, I think it was,
the
or he went back to the old.
MEP guy went back to,
Back.
I think the structural guy was still here.
Okay, MVP.
Yeah.
So one of them went away. So, then we're gonna be kind of rechanging the project again. Whereas it seems to me, when Gordian looked at it, they said, look, let's watch the prices. Let's take a little bit out. We think the biggest item that is take that ceiling out of there, leave the ceiling the way it is. And, you know, that saves a couple $1,000 right off.
And so,
You know, it allows us, with this mechanism, it allows us to kind of cherry pick what we want easier than going back and having a full set of plans redrawn every time.
so if you look
So-
at what's up on the screen there, I mean, you guys can't see it as well. Maybe I could, I mean, those guys can see it easier. If we look at, they added in that 250,000 as a budget amount, very at the very bottom. But they didn't itemize that the same way the rest of it's itemized. Mostly because it's quite time consuming. Anybody who's done any kind of, you know, even if you're using software that's plugging in the numbers, using software to put together figures still is time consuming. And so they asked us if strongly we knew we were going to do it, because then they put the time in. And I couldn't say, neither of us could say, and even Richie couldn't say strongly that we would do
Or
raising the
That's right.
ceiling. And what we had, I had gotten a ladder out of one of the closets, and there's a hole that you can look up and see all the beams and stuff. It's like Roy said, there's like every 5 feet, there's a steel beam, and then there's
and
one
there's a
running
couple
across,
other head.
and then there's some steel corrugated decking and concrete poured on that, etc. So that's a lot of demolition and reconstruction that has to be done in that area. What Richie asked, Jay, who was our BMP rep, you know, they all got up and looked at it, and then looked at the plans. He said, what if you took the ceiling down in a, you know, to make it more like just a little raise, like a tray ceiling?
Right.
I think you could get about 8 inches, and then maybe put some lights around it or something like that.
Do
They
some-
said,
do
rather
some
than-
moldings or lights.
Yeah, get up as far as the steel beam, which was about yay big, or maybe a little bit more, so about 8 inches. And then put some, you know, paint the steel beams, or maybe box them in wood, or box them in some sheetrock or something. Paint them, make them look nice, which would kind of raise the ceiling a little, but you don't have to go through the structure, the demolition.
Without taking the
and-
structure down.
Yeah. So what they suggested was, so the two big things that we have to do is we've got to get the Board of Selectmen on board to use this process. It's actually called, it's up at the top here. If you look at that, you see the Capital Region Council of Governments logo there. And then it's called, this process with Gordian is called IQC. I don't know what IQC stands for. It stands for something. But that's their process of itemizing all the different things by cost. And that's the set cost. If you want to add something in, they'll do it. If you want to take something out, they'll do it. So if we can get you know, what we need to do, and I'll need to go to the next Board of Selectmen meeting, is to get them on board for not this amount, and I could share the other screen, but I won't. It's that 407 that we had agreed on a couple meetings ago, plus a contingency amount.
Right.
Now, the original contingency amount, what we looked at doing is 407, 721.90, adding a contingency of about 15%, which brought us up to 470,000. So then what we were looking at doing too is possibly maybe making that contingency a little bit higher, so that if we want to do that quasi raised like a tray ceiling, not as high, so we don't have to do the structure, we have some money in there to create that kind of ceiling. So that's, and that was
And-
Richie's
and-
idea, so I think he'd
But
be on
but
board.
we would be kind of changing the plan, or, you know, we're kind of using a hybrid now, so we wouldn't be using Peter's plan in its entirety. You know, we're just kind of picking what we want, so it's a little bit different than what was, you know, originally designed.
We did make sure that they kept in, you can see it on there, replace the bluestone stoop outside. Replace those doors, because they're just horrible. Sometimes you can't even get out of them. We're trying to get out of here last Tuesday night after the referendum, and you just had to bash them to get them open. Crazy. And then the double doors going into the GP room. making sure there's a handicapped access button on the outside. You know, some of the stuff that we brought up about doing there on the outside, making sure that got done. So the nice thing about this, having that whole conversation with them, is Gordian folks have worked throughout the state of Connecticut. I know Marty has done some checking on the process and also has talked extensively with Danbury. Danbury's used it a lot. And they've done large projects and small. And large meaning maybe not like our school, they, you know, if you've got specific plans and you need specs and all that, they said you do
Yeah.
that, they
We
do
don't
that
want
the
to
old
do
way.
that.
They don't want to do it our way or that way. They want to do it the old way. But with this, and then we've got some, it's at 250,000 going to go down to work on the locker rooms too. Because we still have that to work on and they still want to look at that. Once the town says, let's go ahead and do this through this process, then we can start the next steps of getting things moving along. When they talked about issuing a purchase order, basically Gordian and actually BMP holds a contract with the state through the regional Capital Regional Council of Governments. So they hold the contract with them, which is why we don't need a contract, we need a purchase order. But if Marty feels more comfortable with the contract, they'll do a contract. So I'm not sure if we need to make any motions or anything. I think we can just go back with that amount. Well, let's maybe we'll do it.
Go back to the original amount.
Or if we're gonna add extra
Oh, if you're gonna add
A little
contingency,
bit more to cover.
Getting my- calculator up here. Calculator. So. Let's see.
Where did they go?
We're here still. Did we disappear off your screen? Oh, John's muted. You're muted, John.
We couldn't see you there for a minute. I wish you would
Oh,
keep the camera on.
we're still here. I'm just kind of,
Well, all right.
I'm
I
cranking
don't think
up.
the three of yous are moving, so the camera shut off.
Now,
I thought maybe you missed me, John.
I'm trying to,
Hey, John.
Get up straight, Benty.
Have you used anything like this Gordian group down in your schools?
No, we haven't. I
Okay.
say this. How is it policed?
what?
How is it policed?
Well, so the BMP, the general contractor or construction manager, whatever the title is, they're the ones that supervise the job, just like Downs did the police station or Rizzo did the schools.
Yeah. Like, do we know that? You know, how did they come up with the electrical number of 41,000?
I think they took the plans and just did an estimate off of it.
It's
Okay.
actually not an estimate, it's more so.
Yeah, it's pulled, actually, this Gordian group apparently is owned by, was it RS Means?
No, they're not owned by them.
I think they were.
Oh, well, they use those categories,
No, I
RS
I
means
think they're owned-
categories.
I think they're owned by.
They could be.
So it's like an estimated company.
Oh,
They
okay.
also, if you Google them, they provide owner's rep and that kind of construction or project management services. So if we took the 407
God bless you.
and we added, what do we want to add for, because we want the contingency and amount to be high enough that if we run into any, we were looking in the bathrooms, they had bashed holes in the bathroom walls to see the pipes, and the pipes don't have asbestos on them, which is a good thing. But that's
Yeah,
just a
Maybe on that
hole,
side, you never know if you hit the other side.
a hole this big and then another hole this big.
What percentage of contingency did we put in?
We put in about 15%.
Yeah, I would go 20.
Well,
For an old building, I'd go 20.
would 20 be enough to, let's see.
Because you're taking the 250 out, right? So that
Yeah.
brings it to
Yep.
450, right?
Yeah,
7. And then where's your line item for contingency in that?
there is.
We would add the
You're just-
contingency.
Oh, you're adding it to his number.
Right, because they
Okay.
don't do that. It's
Yeah.
not the same as putting in a contingency like a construction manager contingency.
And what's your threshold? 5?
5 of what? 5%?
What's your threshold with the town?
We don't know that yet.
Oh,
How much we can spend, you're saying?
no, the threshold, like, for the size of the project, does it bring us another set of rules?
I think we're okay there, John.
No,
Oh,
no,
good.
I don't-
Uh,
it has to be
Just a
prevailing
million
wage.
would,
Oh, yeah. I'll tell you, when you told me the size of the ceiling, and I thought it said 15 by 30. Was that right?
for,
Ceiling,
the
the
bu-
size of it,
yeah,
is it
for the
15
bump,
by,
yeah,
15 by 30 area?
for the bump ups,
Yeah,
yeah. There'd
that's a
probably be
lot of
about,
money.
there'd probably be about 3 or 4 bump ups in there.
Yeah, but that, the area that's gonna be affected, 15 by 30 area for 250,000, that's a lot of money to,
Well, that
Oh,
was.
No, that was to go all the way up. That was to take it
Yeah.
all, remove all the steel,
right,
go all the way up, and there was some asbestos removal upstairs also.
yeah.
So we had to take up, I think, the mastic on the floors.
Well, the floors themselves.
The
had
floors
asbestos.
themselves were bad. It kind of opened up a can of worms
Yeah, sounds like it.
by going upstairs.
And was it sprinkled? Is that area sprinkled?
Yes,
Yeah,
so that was gonna have to, that was a possibility of both electrical and sprinklers having to get, sprinkler pipes having to get moved too, if we bumped it way up. That's what the 250 is. You got abatement going on, you got electrical, you got plumbing, you got some steel that needs to be cut and reconstructed, headered, supported,
And
et
that's,
cetera.
is that full structural in that number?
Yes,
yeah.
but that's a budget number,
Yeah,
okay? If we wanted a
But
specific.
there's really no structural, John. They really don't have to do any structural here. This is really just, clean up, new bathrooms, new tile, paint job. That's
no,
really-
I was just talking about raising the
Flooring.
ceiling. When you said raise the ceiling, I thought you said you were taking out steel.
No, not, if
No.
we're talking about like a very slight raise, like traying the ceiling in between
Yeah.
the beams is all we're talking
Oh,
about
okay.
doing. That would be it.
Yeah,
Or possibly leaving the beams open, John, and painting them.
Right.
If you want a
Sure.
different look.
yeah.
You Rich?
Hi, Rich.
I
You're
read,
muted. So I'm trying to figure out the
Hey, Richie, you're-
contingency
you're muted.
percentage here. 15, let's call it maybe.
Right. Hi, everyone.
Hey.
Thank you for talking about this.
Hey, what was your feeling, Rich, on the meeting today with Gordian?
I thought it was very progressive. I didn't realize that what the architect was proposing there, of raising that ceiling up, I don't know, 8 feet in there. That would be ridiculous, the costs to do that. So I think it was a good compromise that to do the tray effect.
And what was your feeling, Rich, on the management style Gordian as far as, the bidding, eliminating that and what have you?
Yeah, well, they went through all that and I got a better understanding of it also.
Same thing.
Basically where the big savings is in the beginning. If you didn't have the architect's plans and engineering they would do all that and it would, in a lesser amount of money. They were saying that the bid prices, because they're working off of that schedule, might be a little bit cheaper than going out to bid, but
But if we do 20%.
Yeah.
is that what you thought? Roy?
I was actually much more comfortable today after we talked to him, as far as where we are. And I actually thought that there may be some advantages, since we do have, we have basically the plans of, we know what we want to do. And now we could actually, add some or cut some out of the project, depending as we go,
Right.
without having to go back and redesign everything.
But
Right. It seemed like it was an easier way to do any change orders and
Yes.
stuff.
Yep, that's what I thought. So I thought for this project, it maybe would work out rather well.
that's what I'm trying to do.
So my recollection of what you wanted to do, Nancy, was to proceed in hiring Gordon to get them under the contract or agreement, and then Bump will modify the scope of work and then get us a final price on that.
So we weren't too sure though, as far as, we have like a $407,000 number now with them, and we're thinking of putting a contingency onto that and not really knowing what we're talking about for doing the tray ceiling or something, something a little bit fancier. I think we're just trying to get to an amount that would be comfortable that you could bring back to the Board of Selectmen.
Right,
Is
so,
that-
yes, so what we're looking at, if we take that 407, that's 407,721, so almost 408,000. And if we put 20% contingency, which would cover possibly, definitely the amount to do the ceiling bump up if we choose to do that. Because I think what we don't want to do is go to the Board of Selectmen with saying 407,000 and then come back and say, oh, we want a little bit more because we want to bump the ceiling up. I've already talked to when I did my first presentation to the Board of Selectmen, I talked about adding a contingency to cover unforeseen circumstances. So I would say that again, unforeseen circumstances, but also the possibility of raising a section of the ceiling to make like a tray ceiling, but not structural. So we're not looking at the large amount, we're looking at a smaller amount. So if we say 20% of the 407 is another 80 something thousand, so it puts us I would round it off to 490. So Rich, I don't know then if anybody else sees that as a decent number, and I
see what you're trying to do, and I think it's a good idea, but how I would do it would be wait until you've got a larger portion of the project done and you didn't run into any foreseen problems, and then do the ceiling.
Well, but I think we still need to have the amount. We have the amount
You have to go-
approved.
you have to go to the selectmen for an amount.
Yeah.
No, I know, and that's what I'm saying, go with the 490,
Right,
but don't commit to the ceiling until you get 65% through the renovation to make sure you didn't hit anything,
right,
asbestos in the block,
right.
you know what I mean?
Because they're gonna tear down the existing ceiling to the what's there actually is, so the beams, and then they've, twisty wire tied some metal furring strips to the beams. And that's what, there's a layer of sheetrock attached to those metal furring strips. And then the ceiling tiles are glued to that sheetrock. So what Gordian had originally called for taking everything out was a drop ceiling. But we could still, raise it up instead of not drop the lot. Maybe you got a little drop space. That gives them the opportunity to, there's a whole bunch of wire mold that runs all over the ceiling in there for fire stuff and lights and other things. So they would hide that electrical up above. But as Rich pointed out, if we do the little bit of tray to the ceiling, then you might not want a drop ceiling running out from there, because it might look weird, unless you make a nice trim piece around the edge. But that's something, like you said, we can do as we're getting to they do the demolition, they start doing some little construction. They start looking at finishes.
Yeah, we could add it on. Like you said, it's a menu, so.
So it is, and it's something, they don't call it a change order, they call it a supplemental, but it's easily done.
Unit
Because they can
prices are
easily
right
put
there.
the unit prices are there, they can put it together and, we can easily do that, or we just leave it out. So if we're good about adding a little bit more into the contingency and we're going for 490, I'll be at the next Board of Selectmen meeting, hopefully, to talk about that. And also, the biggest thing that Gordian wanted and BMP, both of them wanted us to do was to get the okay that the Board of Selectmen are comfortable with the process, this procurement process, and they understand it, so we can then move further ahead. They can do more for us once the town, meaning the Board of Selectmen, is on board with the process. Right?
Well, Nancy, why can't we do that? Why can't we, at the next Board of Selectmen meeting, present that to them to hire Gordian and have them give us the estimate of what that tray ceiling would cost? And then we can go back and they can award the contract or the dollar amount to it. But get them on board, get them approved to proceed.
Right, but
But you're not approving the first part where then they can't order anything.
yeah, they can't get started if we're just dragging along asking for more figures.
But they're on contract that you're gonna do, their biggest thing is they weren't gonna do another nickel into that project until they had an agreement that we were gonna use them to do this work.
Yeah, but
They didn't say anything that they needed a dollar amount at this time.
No,
but we need a dollar amount to approve for the ARPA funds, to have it approved to get them to start the order, or we're gonna be 6 more weeks out, or another 6 months.
Now, we gotta go to the 490 to the Board of Selectmen.
If you're agreeing that you wanna use them, give them a dollar amount and then do the change order for the ceiling.
Yeah,
Well, they don't call the change order.
Oh, it's a new
It's a
purchase
sup-
order or
it's a
whatever.
supplemental.
If we
Supplemental
can't,
order.
we'll take it out. If
Or we're
it's not
already-
in that, we'll
Yeah,
take it
yeah.
out.
Or we do it, or we don't do it. It's like we can do it or we don't have to do it.
Right.
Yeah, it
But
gives us,
we know we need to do the main part.
yes, and it gives us more flexibility to move forward with the work that needs to get
You want
done
me to make the motion?
and do it or not do it. Sure.
I'd like to make a motion that we submit to the Board of Selectmen a request for $490,000 for the procurement of Gordian and their contractors for the municipal center hallway project.
I'll second that.
Roy seconds it. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, done. So then I will be at the next Board of Selectmen meeting with this information,
When is the next Board of Selectmen's meeting?
March 3rd, I think, or May
May
3rd,
May 3rd.
May 3rd. Let me look.
The first Tuesday of the month.
Yeah, so it's May 3rd. So I'll just make sure I get in touch with them to make sure we're on the agenda for that. Since they tabled it from the last meeting, it should be on this one. So we should be good to go. And I don't think we need any other information. Except, I mean, Marty did, like I said, Marty did some checking on references and kind of got some good feedback, so that's a good thing.
He'll be there too.
Yes. Anything else? Yeah, good. So again, we're not having a meeting on May 11th because of a lot of reasons. Our next meeting is the May 25th, which will be here, hybrid, onto Zoom. If anything comes up in the meantime where we have to have a meeting, I'll let you know. We'll call a special meeting. We'll find a place to meet. and figure out a way to do it, and we'll go from there.
I can make a motion, we adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Bye.
Aye.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Good night,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Bye, folks. Take care.
All right.
Thank you, thank you.